Lord Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Prime Minister, my Lords and members of the House of Commons, thank you for inviting me to speak to you here in this magnificent hall. I'm very conscious of the extraordinary nature of this honor. I understand that there was some debate as to whether I would speak here in this splendid setting or elsewhere within the Palace of Westminster. I welcome that debate and discussion. It is what Parliament is all about. I have just come from Downing Street. It was my first visit there, and yet, for me, it was a familiar scene, not just from television broadcasts, but from my own family history. As some of you may be aware, the best-known photograph of my father, Aung, taken shortly before his assassination in 1947, was of him standing in Downing Street with Clement Attlee and others with whom he had been discussing Burma's transition to independence. He was pictured wearing a large British military-issue greatcoat. This had been given to him by Jawaharlal Nehru en route to the UK to protect him against the unaccustomed cold. And I must say, having not left my tropical country for 24 years, there have been the odd moments this week when I have thought of that coat myself. A couple of hours ago, I was photographed in the same place where my father was photographed, together with Prime Minister David Cameron, and it was raining. Very British. My father was a founding member of the Burmese Independence Army in World War II. He took on this responsibility out of a desire to see democracy established in his homeland. It was his view that democracy was the only political system worthy of an independent nation. It is a view, of course, that I have long shared. General Slim, commander of the 14th Army, who led the Allied Burmese campaign, wrote about his first encounter with my father in his memoir, Defeat unto Victory. The meeting came towards the end of the war, shortly after my father had decided that the Burmese Independence Army should join forces with the Allies. General Slim said to my father, "You've only come to us because we are winning," to which my father replied, "It wouldn't be much good coming to you if you weren't, would it?" Slim saw in my father a practical man with whom he could do business. 6 decades later, I strive to be as practical as my father was. And so I'm here, in part, to ask for practical help. Help as a friend and an equal. In support of the reforms which can bring better lives, greater opportunities to the people of Burma who have been for so long deprived of their yesterday in Oxford. My country today stands at the heart of a journey towards to be breached. Our own determination can get us so far. The support of the people of Britain and of peoples around the world can get us so much further. In a speech about change and reform, it is very appropriate to be in Westminster Hall because at the heart of this process must be the establishment of a strong parliamentary institution in my own country. The British Parliament is perhaps the preeminent symbol to oppressed peoples around the world of freedom of speech. I would imagine that some people here, to some extent, take this freedom for granted. For us in Burma, what you take for granted, we have had to struggle for long and hard. So many people in Burma gave up so much, gave up everything in Burma's ongoing struggle for democracy. And we are only now just beginning to see the fruits of our struggle. Westminster has long set a shining example of realizing the people's desire to be part of their own legislative process. In Burma, our parliament is in its infancy, having been established only in March 2011. As with any new institution, especially an institution which goes against the cultural grain of 49 years of direct military rule, it will take time to find its feet and time to find its voice. Our new legislative processes, which undoubtedly are an improvement on what went before, are not as transparent as they might be. I would like to see us learn from established examples of parliamentary democracies elsewhere so that we might deepen our own democratic standards over time. Perhaps the most critical moment in establishing the credibility of the parliamentary process happens before Parliament even opens, namely the people's participation in a free, fair, inclusive electoral process. Earlier this year, I myself participated in my first ever election as a candidate. To this day, however, I have not yet had the chance to vote freely in any election. In 1990, I was allowed to cast an advance vote while under house arrest, but I was prevented from contesting as a candidate for my party, the National League for Democracy. I was disqualified on the grounds that I had received help from foreign quarters. This amounted to BBC broadcasts that the authorities considered to be biased in my favor. What struck me most ahead of this year's by-elections was how quickly people in the constituencies around Burma grasped the importance of participating in the political process. They understood firsthand that the right to vote was not something given to all. They understood that they must take advantage when the opportunity arose, because they understood what it meant to have that opportunity taken away from them. During the years that I lived in the United Kingdom, I never had the right to vote myself, but I can remember, even during my university days, that I was always trying to encourage my friends to exercise their right to vote. It was never clear to me whether they followed those instructions, but it was clear to me even then that if we do not regard the rights we have, we run the risk of seeing those rights erode away. To those who feel themselves to be somehow above politics, I want to say that politics should be seen neither as something that exists above us, nor as something